Happy Monday. Welcome back. I am Rita Ernst. I am the author of Show Up Positive. Over here in the corner. God, I'm so bad at pointing. There we go. Over here in the corner. That's my book. And I'm so happy you're with me today. It is the week leading into Mother's Day. So I've added a banner to the bottom just to remind you Show Up Positive is now available in audiobook. And I mentioned that in collaboration with Mother's Day upcoming because there are a lot of busy moms like me who have really, as podcasts have become more and more valuable way of educating and participating in conversation about topics of interest, we've come to listen and learn to multitask and listen to things of interest to us. And so that is the number one reason that I recorded the audiobook version. So it is my voice of Show Up Positive, and you can get it on a multitude of different audiobook formats. So, what a lovely gift to add in for Mother's Day to your friend or your mother who is a busy professional woman like you, but needs to access to more inspiration and information. And I would love for you to share the book as a present. So you can buy that. Barnes and Noble has a version, Amazon, there's independent podcasting. So all of that is available. For quick links, you can go to my website, igniteextraordinary.com, and that's the end of the advertisement. Let's get into today's topic that I promised you: how to kick your micromanager to the curb. All of us, or most of us, have inside of us as some level of micromanager, that person who, especially in stressful times, feels a lot of accountability and responsibility and therefore tends to over direct others around us. And it can be very debilitating and disruptive to your team. And when it perpetuates over time, it definitely creates discontent and can send your culture headed right down the toilet bowl. And so that's why it is so important that we're mindful about that inner judge critic in our mind that is telling us the story that we need to exert more control. And that's really what it is, right? The story we're telling ourselves when that critic takes over is, hey, I need to stay on top of this or it won't happen. Hey, I have the most knowledge or information, so I need to make sure that everything I know gets shared with others. Or, hey, I'm not sure if this person really has the skill set to pull this off without some guidance. It's my responsibility as the leader in the situation to give that extra information. And so we can tell ourselves that it's coming from a place of good intention, but I want to remind you of three essential things in Show Up Positive that everybody needs in their workplace: autonomy, contribution, and belonging. Well, you're fooling around there with that autonomy piece when you get too over directing. So let's talk about the mindset work first and foremost. How do you build your self awareness and get more aware? Again, it's very tricky because our inner critic tells us a story that says, hey, it is essential that you do this. So you want to start by noticing that story that you're telling yourself. When you find yourself getting much more involved in the details instead of elevating, if it's not really your job, you should be elevating. If you're down in the details and it's not really your job, you need to ask yourself, why am I making this choice right now? Why am I choosing to do this? What story do I have that has me believing that the best course of action I could be taking at this moment is to get this involved in the level of detail? And then you have to challenge that story. What else could be true? Why am I acting on this story? What other stories are possible here? And so that's number one. Work on your mindset. Really notice what you are doing, and more importantly, why. What is the story that is driving your behavior in this direction? And sometimes it comes from experience. We know that when we have not been so involved in the past, maybe things have not gone well and we've felt responsible for that failure. And that causes us to choose this as a new direction. then it just becomes a question of adjustment. So let's think about that micromanagement on a continuum. There are times in urgent situations when it is absolutely essential to jump in and dictate and command what needs to happen. There's not time to allow for a lot of conversation, and it's important things get fixed. But are you in that situation right now? Where are you on that continuum of urgency? And when you are not in the fire, when you're not in the thick of the fire, how can you begin to back down and test for competence? How can you move to coach mode instead of command mode and build the capability of others? Because that's what's so important. When you step in and dictate everything, you are not providing the space that is necessary for people to understand the process and come to their own conclusions and really own it deeply in themselves so that they can not only replicate it in the future, but they understand it to a strong enough degree that it informs their thinking going forward, so they are better problem solvers. When new situations arrive, they can draw upon the learning from this. So you're robbing people of this really important learning experience that is only going to make your team and your performance stronger in the long term. So in the short term, jumping in and taking over can feel like a good fix. And in a fire situation, absolutely, you should go to that. But recognize that you are also robbing the longer play that you want to have here in terms of building the capability of people in your organization, not just for this moment, but for their ability to intuit and think about different ways to approach new challenges when maybe you're not around to give that direct guidance. So, the other thing about micromanaging is that sometimes we have new team members or people who are being asked to do something they don't know how to do. And it's important that we think about how to accelerate that ability in those individuals. And that's what I talk about. Here's the book, Show Up Positive. I am on page 242, and the Show Up Positive Spark is called Self Directed, Independent, Autonomous, Resourceful. And I lay out some, I don't know, it looks like maybe 8 or 9 suggestions for how to accelerate autonomy or self direction in the workplace when you have people that are in a new situation that really are not yet ready to fly solo. So here they are. I'm just going to read them off to you. Give adequate job training. It is so important. I feel like we have forgotten sometimes in the workplace that people don't always come ready skilled, and we have to take on some of the responsibility for teaching them our ways of doing things and recognizing where their previous experience gets them and where the gap is and filling the gap. So you don't need to reteach them what they already come with competence to do, but you might have to put it in the context of your workplace. Next, provide the necessary tools and resources. And you have to be in conversation to understand this. What tools and resources are they looking for? They may have had a different system that they were using before that did some steps that your systems don't do, and they might need training to understand that, or they might need help. Or you might have a more advanced system that they don't know how to use those steps because they've never been introduced to that. So teaching them those resources is important. The next one, utilize peer mentors. I'm not talking about putting too much onerous on peers to be responsible to train others. I think that is a job that needs to be shared among many, because you'll burn out your best people if you're not careful. If you always have them training other people, but peer mentors can be important, and it should be a good relationship that works for the mentor and the mentee from a timing and from a personality. So make sure that the person who is new is having some input into who, and encourage them to choose their own peer mentor, by the way. You don't have to set that up for them. Check in frequently. Makes sense. But we're checking in. What do you need? Giving people the step by step, not overwhelming them with too much, not assuming too far down the pathway, but also not over micromanaging, doing the check-in and pulling back appropriately as their skills rise. The next one, encourage the team to share learnings and insights. Next, praise resourcefulness. So when people do step up, they take that moment of learning and they apply it to a new situation. Make sure that you are reinforcing that initiative and the resourcefulness of their thinking. Ask for feedback about what is and isn't working. Give recognition frequently. It's so important when somebody is new into a job or a set of responsibilities that they are getting recognition and that is an equal or higher measure to all the course correction that they're getting to keep them motivated, and reward autonomy and teamwork. So when people are doing that peer mentorship, when they're helping one another out, when they are building their capacity to operate more independently, you want to make sure that you are giving them the appropriate reinforcement of that. So, micromanagers, not the good long term strategy. There's tons of data. You all know it. You've all probably worked for a micromanager and you know how demotivating it was to be in that situation. So, let's kick that inner critic to the curb. Let's look at the story that they are telling and make sure that it really is truth and not just a lot of anxiety and fear wrapped up into a story that is putting you on a path that is not going to serve you long term. And then collaborate with with your team, talk with the people around you and make sure that you are building their confidence and capacity and leaning into their capabilities in the best way possible as you release the micromanagement and focus on the bigger, more helpful responsibilities that you have of unleashing all that capacity in a sustainable way and building the capability of your team to meet new situations with all of the information and insight they've gleaned through all of the day-to-day work that they've been owning and doing. I'm Rita Ernst. This has been your Monday Minute on micromanaging. I hope that you will hit me up in comments or come into the direct message if you'd like to talk about this more. And if I can give you any additional guidance. And don't forget, Mother's Day is this weekend. Make sure you're taking care of all the mothers around you, your peers, your friends, your siblings, and of course your own moms. Have a great week. Bye.